Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and Unicron joins the Star Wars saga. Or something close, in this episode. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. We're looking this time, as part of our Interlude, at another of the Marvel UK original stories that were produced in comic form in the UK in the 80s, not reprinted in the United States, though, until classic Star Wars Devil Worlds in 1996. The story this time is entitled Rust Never Sleeps. It's from the Empire Strikes Back Monthly, issue 156 in May of 1982, and once again, it is comic legend Alan Moore, who seems like he was on drugs when he wrote most of these, writing this story. The story is entitled Rust Never Sleeps, and you can find it these days as the first story in classic Star Wars Devil Worlds, issue number 2 from 1996 from Dark Horse Comics, where they reprinted and colorized these stories. It's a little bit odd. The concept here, basically, is that there's this planet that's sort of a junkyard for old droids and old machines and whatnot. So ships will fly over it and just dump their metal junk down onto the planet. And this time, though, there are two stowaways, R2-D2 and C-3PO. They are there to see if it's possible to disrupt the Empire's operations on the planet, because the Empire's planning on using metals they're getting from this planet, Ronyards, as it's called, to supplement its war fleet. You cut off the movement of metals from here, maybe you hamper the Imperial war machine. R2 and C-3PO wind up meeting Brother Five Lines. F-I-V-E-L-I-N-E-S. Five Lines. I guess that's how you're supposed to pronounce it here. This sort of religious, mystic, giant green droid here, or at least green in this edition of it. And he basically is telling them how the planet takes care of itself. It doesn't need to be part of a bigger war. Understand, according to his mind, that the planet is sort of alive. All these droid consciousnesses, which is a debate by itself, right? I-5, YQ, and all that stuff in Coruscant Nights and before that. You've got this whole issue where the idea is that there's these droid consciousnesses that wind up on the planet, and eventually, as they become part of the planet that's in some cases 5 miles deep in junk from old droids and old other machines, they kind of came alive. They became sort of like this droid god figure on this planet. The junk planet is alive. Again, it's sort of like a cross between Unicron in Transformers the movie, right, or the Transformers mythos, where you've got this living one consciousness planet that's sort of a big droid, in a sense, in and of itself, and the idea of sort of a Primus in Transformers, at least in the comics, where you've got sort of a soul of the planet, but the planet itself doesn't transform and become something with hands and arms and such, and it's designed to look a lot like Junkion, also from Transformers the movie, okay? Take those and cram them together prior to, I think, any of those actually hitting the airwaves or anything like that. And you get basically what we have here with this weird concept of a living planet. Or living metal planet. So the Imperials show up, Stormtroopers show up here, trying to gather materials, and they wind up killing Five Lines, only the planet strikes back. Nails and such, bolts and such, start flying at them and cutting them to pieces. The metal starts ripping them apart, burying them in the metal until the point where there is nothing left. Very, very strange, weird living planet type of scenario here. And again, with classic Marvel UK type of panache and overly dramatic narration, we get, at last, the fury abates. And where moments before the proud bulk of an Imperial Star Destroyer had reared against the skyline, there was nothing. Nothing at all. The Imperial records noted the loss of a Star Destroyer with all hands during the Ronyards expedition, victims of an unfortunate fluke of circumstance. We have a name for such flukes. We call them acts of God. But the Empire had dispensed with such foolish and arcane notions long ago, and perhaps that was their loss. The end. An interesting, weird tale. I kind of like the fact that this planet of junk is easy for us to picture now, though, because, of course, in The Force Unleashed, we have Raxus Prime, which we see, and actually the dumping of the bits and pieces of droids kind of reminds me of the dumping of materials in the Sith Hunters, part of the Clone Wars Digest series here, because we find Darth Maul in the Clone Wars series on the planet Lotho Minor, also a junk planet, essentially. And here, in this story, we see what happened to him, and basically, while he's in a container of plasma waste or whatever from Naboo, he basically gets dumped as well onto Lotho Minor. You can sort of see it in this image here. You got the ship way back in the background dropping its cargo, and it's kind of just laying across the landscape, and the top half of his body being trapped inside of it. So it's kind of interesting to see that parallel there, though certainly it probably wasn't an intended parallel in The Sith Hunters, just something that struck me as I was reading it. An interesting story that does delve into the whole consciousness of droids type of issue here, notions of religion in a sense here, but certainly not something that's very impactful. So, is this story, Rust Never Sleeps, in Classic Star Wars Different Worlds #2 and The Empire Strikes Back Monthly #156 from the UK, an essential read? Again, absolutely not. Little unusual, kind of interesting if you're looking for more cerebral Star Wars stuff, but not essential by any means. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.